Hey there, this is your pal Pally, and welcome back to Getter Raid. Heroic Siege of Orgrimmar is unfolding before us, and next up is Heroic Fallen Protectors. Here is a decent healing test and somewhat of a DPS test as well, so steady up if you want to pass it. Or just get some more gear, that always helps. This fight is usually 2 tanked and 3 healed, but it's a balancing act. If you can 2 heal it, it'll lessen some of the effects of the heroic-only mechanics. We did eventually 2 heal this after trying a few different combinations and strategies. Alrighty, so what's the difference for heroic mode? The biggest difference is that the longer each boss is not pushed into a desperate measures phase, the deadlier they become. They are also allowed to use all of their abilities even when another boss's desperate measures phase is going off. So, for example, Sun can use Calamity while you are doing Rook's desperate measures. That can get tricky, as you might imagine. There's also a significant difference to Rook's desperate measures phase that will cause you to set up for that one a little differently. Let's go right into that desperate measures change, as it's a biggie. Rook spawns his 3 adds like normal, but on heroic mode they all share a health pool. This is nice for multi-dotting purposes, but it does mean you have to deal with all 3 adds and their abilities until the end. You still need to have much of the raid stack up for Inferno Strike, but more importantly, you need to get an interrupt rotation going for the embodied gloom. Corruption Shock is what you need to interrupt. In normal mode, this really wasn't that deadly, and you could just blow up the gloom first and not worry about it. But on heroic, since the health pools are shared between the embodied adds, you have to have people on gloom full time. If a Corruption Shock goes off, it can get nasty, since you are mostly stacked up for Inferno Strike, and Corruption Shock splashes its damage to nearby raid members. So an interrupt rotation is mandatory. We had our 2 melee rotate, plus a range thrown in after they were done. The cooldown on this ability seemed to come up faster than the 12 to 15 second interrupt cooldown for most classes, so we just played it safe with 3 people being in on the rotation. I've even seen raid groups having the He Softfoot tank help out with interrupts, as long as they keep watch for gouge. This can complicate things because the tank is likely to get aggro on the gloom, and then you may be dropping poison puddles all around from He Softfoot. Anywho, just get this interrupt routine down, and this part of the phase won't be deadly. Inferno Strike is just as deadly in heroic, so you have to handle it just like normal mode, and stack up near the person that gets it. But the tricky thing is that Shah-Seer is also going out at the same time during the entire fight. So you have to have the person who is getting seared move out from the stat group. This is a huge time for healing cooldowns, so be ready. As always, the Rook tank should have the embodied misery and be tanking it away from everyone. Nothing different there. So that about covers the desperate measures of Rook. The other 2 bosses really don't have any changes to their desperate measures phases, so there really isn't anything to write home about. Just make sure to pass the Mark of Anguish on to people one by one. Maybe 4 to 5 people with decent personal cooldowns will do just fine. You can include the He tank in on that as well. And Sun's desperate measures phase is no different than normal. Stack in, kill adds. The only slight trick to mention is that you do have to keep the Rook tank away from the group right before he does his Corruption Kick combo. If he somehow ends up in the bubble and smacking people, there's a good chance that someone will die. So back to the regular phases for a few brief notes before we tackle strategy. As I mentioned in the beginning, the longer the bosses are not pushed into their transition phases, the deadlier they get. For Rook, his Corrupted Brew will travel faster and faster, and eventually become impossible to dodge. For He Softfoot, he'll continue to put out Garrotes, and the entire raid will have them. The biggest killer will be Sun's Calamity. Every time she gets it off, the next one will take away 10% more health from the raid. So if it starts out taking 30% of your health, it won't take long for this to start hitting for 50 or 60% or more. You are forced to push her at some point. That brings us to the strategy. Most groups I've seen will approach the order of the bosses the same. They'll push Rook first, then Sun, then He. The main reason for this is that in the last phase, when you are trying to kill off the bosses, you will have a raid clean of Garrotes, since you just finished He's Desperate Measures phases. We did this order essentially, but with a twist. We pushed Rook first, but then we pushed Sun and He at the same time. Try to push Sun first so that everyone can be grouped up under the bubble, and then push He. That way, whomever gets the Mark of Anguish will be protected under the bubble, most likely. Then you can just treat the Mark of Anguish like any other ad in that phase. Obviously, you'll need to burst some DPS and healing, and watch whomever has the mark, but this really simplifies the approach to the fight. It feels more like a fight with 4 transitions instead of 6. This will take some getting used to, but we found it worked for our group. So let's see, what other tips and tricks are there to this fight? Well, one that you may have known from normal mode is that Pallies can clear off Garrotes from themselves with Bubble, and from others with Hand of Protections. If you are 2 healing, this can come in handy to relieve some healing pressure during an intense healing section. On the same subject of He Softfoot mechanics, there is a small point to note for Heroic regarding his Poison Puddles. No, they aren't a DPS buff, although if you want to tell a raider you really hate that, that's your deal. But in Heroic mode, when he does any of his special abilities like Garrote or Gouge, and he has the Poison Blades on, he can indeed leave a poison puddle on the ground. This means he can drop puddles in the middle of the room where a ranged or healer is standing. So if you want to be sure the protective bubble of Sun is clear of any nasty puddles, you might want to avoid standing in that area for most of the fight until it's time. Just a small point, but just thought I'd cover it for completeness' sake. Unfortunately, I missed capturing the ending of this fight in our first kill, but there really is no change from normal mode. It's a race to the finish because, as I've covered before, they get deadlier and deadlier the longer they have not been in a Desperate Measures phase. So by the end, the Corrupted Brew becomes almost unavoidable, there are Garrotes everywhere in the raid, and Sun's Calamity hurts. If you can manage to save a few raid CDs or personal ones, burn them up here. Remember to bring down the bosses evenly at the end. We had a sub 0% wipe where we pushed a boss just a little early and couldn't kill his buddies off fast enough. Boom! They were back at 25%, and that's pretty much a wipe at that point. So just be careful. Have people call out percentages, slow DPS, switch DPS, whatever you need to do. As I've said, this fight gets easier and easier with gear, so if you're having trouble with it, you may want to try other easier Heroic fights so you come back overpowering this one. As always, here are the DPS and healing numbers so you can get an idea of what it took. Just interrupt Gloom in Rook's Desperate Measures phase, try pushing the other 2 bosses into their transitions at the same time, and then do your best to hold up your end of the DPS and healing bargain, and you'll get this fight down soon enough. Thanks for watching, and please comment, like, and or subscribe to the video if you found it helpful, and have a good one!